But I want to talk about the donation story particularly, because this has been a big story this week, and Diane Abbott, the race row about that. We'll come back to Ralph in a minute, but Sam Power is with us. He's senior lecturer at the School of Politics and Law and Sociology at the University of Sussex. Sam, thanks for joining us. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, Peter. How are you?
Very well, thanks. Tell me about this row, because I just thought it was interesting from a donations perspective, from an ethics perspective. Lots of people saying Frank Hester, the man who hasn't denied making racist comments about Diane Abbott 5 years ago, well, give him the money back. That's what lots of people are saying. But actually, if you give that money back, are people then saying give money to someone who's made racist comments, give it back? I mean, donations in this country, £10 million is a huge amount of money in UK terms, as I understand it, and you're the expert, Sam. Not a lot of money in regard to, for example, American terms or many other parts around the world. What do you make of this scandal?
Yeah, so you're quite right. £10 million in UK politics, that's about a fifth of what all parties spent at the last general election. So it's a huge amount of money. £50 million was the total amount of spend at the 2019 general election for parties. But £10 million in US terms, you're looking at, you know, a competitive congressional seat probably.
I remember someone telling me years ago when I worked in America, and this was in the late 2000s, I'm showing my age here, that congressmen and women needed to raise $10,000 a week, just if you're a congressman or woman. Does that sound about right, or maybe it's a lot more than that now?
I would put that as an underestimate, frankly. But I suppose it depends on the seat. But yeah, it's an incredible amount of money sloshing around in US politics. And, you know, what we're talking about here is a lot in terms of UK politics. And because it's quite that much, and because of the nature of donors themselves, I mean, I'm going to put my head out on a limb here, I suppose. Go out on a limb here, I suppose. I'd be amazed if they gave that money back, because it's not just £10 million. There's apparently an extra £5 million somewhere that was reported this week. Above and beyond that, it sets a precedent that if a donor does something that you might not agree with, you shouldn't take their money. And I don't think the Labour Party want to get into that conversation either, frankly. No political parties do. So the Labour Party, I think, you know, they're making hay while the sun shines on something like this. But what they want is to use it as a stick to beat the Conservatives with. What they don't...
Let me ask you a question, Sam, that I'll ask Ralph as well. How should we fund politics in the United Kingdom? It costs money, printing those leaflets, getting those buses and helicopters and various things for people to go to campaign and so on. It costs money. The money needs to come from somewhere. What would you do? What is the fairest, most ethical system to fund political parties, do you think? And please don't say it's out of taxation. But well, you can say it if you want to, but I don't think it's going to be too popular.
So one of the things that we need to think about is that there's no way in which we can fund politics which will lead to a corruption-free politics. So one of the things that we hear about the argument with state funding, for example, which I think I'm probably slightly more supportive of than you are, Peter, but that's fine.
That's okay.
It will reduce big donor influence on politics and somehow lead to the pall of corruption from Westminster rising up, and we all will have faith in the system. That simply won't happen, and doesn't happen in many of the countries, Austria included, that have more significant levels of state funding than we do. What state funding might provide, I always say, is that it might provide a means for political parties to rely less on these big donors, which is actually quite an unsustainable way of trying to fund politics. It's very easy at an election to fund, to get these donations, because elections are the time that people are very interested and engaged and don't want the other side to get in. But political parties in the UK have to constantly fundraise. And it's a hard argument to make, to say, if you don't give us our money, we won't fund the print, we won't be able to fix our printer. It's an easy argument to make, to say, if you don't give us our money, the Labour Party or the Conservative Party will get it. So there's an argument for state funding in the sense that parties are important and democracy is an important thing to fund, but it will not reduce corruption in political life, I'm afraid.
A lot of people are asking whether Diane Abbott should be readmitted to the Labour Party. That investigation is going on. I'm not really asking your opinion on that, Sam. I suppose what I'm asking your opinion on is these processes that they go through. A lot of people contact me quite often about Nick Brown, for example, and the process and the disciplinary hearing into him, as well as into Diane Abbott. They just seem to take forever. Why can't they happen quickly, do you think, and should they happen more swiftly?
Well, these processes take an awful long time, and they are incredibly opaque. I suspect it's because there's a lot, like any institution, political parties are quite slow moving, and these tribunal processes take a long time. There's, I suppose, evidence gathering, but then there's also lots and lots and lots. I mean, particularly in the Labour Party side of things, lots of meetings that need to happen before an outcome can be reached. And there's an extent to which, actually, I think, particularly the Labour Party, particularly now, they're quite happy not making these decisions. They're quite happy not having the boat rocked. They're in an incredibly strong electoral position. And
they can say to journalists like me, the inquiry is ongoing, and we don't have anything more to say on this. They can say we don't comment on ongoing investigations, which they have to me in regard to Nick Brown a couple of times when I've asked the question, and that is a safe answer, free of political risk.
Exactly. It's the leave alone shot of British politics, or the safety play, which is the easiest thing to do sometimes. Okay. So to actually make a decision puts it back on the agenda and doesn't give you that easy out.